So if you are currently learning how to play slide guitar or have been playing slide for a while and are a Derek Trucks fan, then you've probably noticed that whether Derek is playing slide or not, a lot of his notes have this kind of explosive noise that happens on the initial attack or just the beginning of the note. So instead of the notes having just a normal straightforward attack like this, he often does this. So what is that sound? Well, that's called a rake. Derek Trucks, of course, isn't the only person that does rakes. There are tons of just regular non-slide pick-using guitarists that do them as well, like this. But Derek does his rakes in a pretty specific and unique way that I feel is an essential technique to master if you want to play like Derek Trucks, or if you just want to get a bigger, punchier, more explosive sound in your slide playing and fretted lead finger picking in general. So that's what we're going to dig into in today's video, how to do the Derek Trucks style rake technique. All right, let's talk about the rake. So first of all, I just want to clarify a couple things about it. The first thing is, when it comes to Derek Trucks' playing specifically, there is an important distinction to be made between the rake technique that he does and this other similar thing that he does where he makes this sort of distorted swooshing type sound in between a lot of his licks. The swooshing thing that he does is kind of connected to the rake because he often will do a rake into the next lick right after doing the swoosh, but they are kind of still two separate things. The difference between them is, first of all, the rake is pretty much entirely in the right hand or the picking hand, and the rake is essentially a part of the note itself. It's part of the initial attack transient of whatever note is being played. Whereas the swoosh sound is first of all done with both hands, so it involves both the picking hand and the slide hand. And rather than being a part of or directly tied to the note or lick that's being played, like I alluded to a second ago, the swoosh sound acts as more of a divider to separate different licks and phrases. For example, let's say I have two licks. One and two. The swoosh sound is going to go in between those two licks. So all of that to say, it's important to know that they are two similar but distinct techniques. Now, of course, in this video, we're mainly going to focus on the rake technique, but I will go ahead and show you real quick how to do the swoosh because it's actually pretty easy. Pretty much all you have to do is just play any lick. I'll do this one again. That's what I'm going to play, but you can literally play any slide lick that you already know. Then once you've played your lick, literally just swipe up across all 6 strings. I typically use my index finger to do this. So just... Then with your slide hand coming directly off of whatever the last note of your lick was, just quickly move the slide down to the lower end of the fretboard here, keeping the slide on the strings the whole time. That's important. Combine that with the picking hand and you get this. So that's the first half of the swoosh. For the second half, all you have to do is just move the slide right back up to wherever you're going to be playing your next lick, keeping all of the strings ringing out the whole time from that initial swipe up. So like this. And then just play your next lick. Getting it sounding seamless like that will just come with time and repetition. So that's the swoosh technique. When it comes to Derek Trucks' playing, that aspect of it is a little bit divisive. I've heard some people say they think his playing is too noisy or scratchy sounding, and whether they know it or not, that is mostly because of that swoosh thing that he does. So it's up to you whether or not you want to incorporate that into your own playing, and if you don't want to, then just know that you don't have to do the swoosh thing in order to do the raking technique. Alright guys, sorry to interrupt the lesson, I promise this will be quick. I just wanted to let you guys know that this video, like all of my videos, is sponsored by myself, specifically my guitar video courses. And I'm currently running a 40% off 4th of July discount on all of my courses. My standard tuning slide course, fretting behind the slide course, Modern slide guitar bundle, and fingerpicking for electric guitarists are all 40% off for a limited time. I put a ton of time and effort into making sure every one of my guitar courses is as easy to follow, yet useful and informative as possible, because I truly genuinely care about providing the best experience for you guys and sharing whatever skills and knowledge that I have with you. And these courses are the main way that I support myself and am able to continue doing what I do. So if you're interested, then I would greatly appreciate it if you go to the link in the description down below and take a look at my courses. Thank you so much to everyone who has purchased a course or courses of mine, and to anyone who decides to get one of them through this video. All right, let's get back to the video. Now that we've established all of that, let's go ahead and break down the rake technique. First, we have to choose which string we're actually going to be playing on. So I'm going to go with the high E string. Then we have to get our picking hand in position to play said string. So for me personally, whenever I'm raking into notes, I pretty much always am going to actually pick the note itself with my index finger. For those of you who are new to this style of finger picking, this is all done with the flesh of your finger, so no fingernails involved. And to actually pluck the string, you're doing kind of this upward motion with your index finger, not getting too much under the string like this, so you're not popping it out like that. It's more like you're kind of coming up like this with your finger, and you're kind of brushing across the top of the string. Your finger moves in this kind of diagonal motion like this. So that's how you're going to actually pick the note. Now, I should point out that oftentimes when Derek Trucks is doing the rake technique, he actually picks with both his index and middle finger at the same time, like this. It's essentially the same motion as doing it with your index finger. He's just using both fingers to pluck the string there. So if you want to do it exactly like Derek often does, then you can do that double finger thing, but you certainly don't have to. I personally just use my index finger only for this, and it works just fine, but it's up to you which one you want to do. Whichever way you decide to do it, make sure you have your finger or fingers resting on the high E string there, ready to pick the string. Next, go ahead and choose what note you're going to actually play with the slide. So I'm just going to go for a C note on the high E string 8th fret here. Again, if you're new to this style of finger picking, then when you're playing on the high E string here with your index finger, you're going to want to have your thumb in kind of like the side of your palm like this, dampening all of the lower strings, so the B string all the way down to the low E, so that only the high E string is allowed to ring out. All of the other ones are dampened. So with that in mind, just make sure you can play your note normally first. Once you can do that, then you're ready to learn the rake itself. Now, the rake itself is pretty much entirely done by your thumb. So what we're going to do is take our thumb from this kind of position here and put it all the way down on the low E string. And then to make the rake sound, you're just going to swipe down across the strings. In order for this to have that big explosive sound, you have to dig in somewhat hard with this. So really make sure you're just hitting those strings. Now, when you do this swipe through the strings, only go up as far as the string below whichever one you're about to actually play. So in this case, because the note that I'm playing is on the high E string, I'm only going to swipe up as far as the B string with my thumb. You don't have to swipe all the way up through the B string if you don't want to. You could stop at the G string if you wanted. The important thing is that you don't swipe all the way up through the string that you're actually going to play. Because when you go to pick the note with your index finger, you could inadvertently block that string from ringing out with your thumb, like this. So basically, I would just recommend swiping through one or two strings lower than the string that you're trying to play. So that's the first part of the rake motion, just swiping down with your thumb. The second part is, immediately after doing the swipe motion, you want to lay the side of your thumb down on all of the strings that you just swiped through to dampen them. So you're going to start the swipe with your thumb positioned kind of up and out here like this just a little bit. You're going to swipe down, and as you're swiping down, you're going to kind of rotate your hand like this, sort of, so that by the time you finish the swipe, your thumb is planted down on all of those lower strings in that position that we talked about a minute ago, where the side of your thumb and kind of your palm a little bit too are dampening all of the lower strings below that high E. So it ends up looking kind of like this. So practice doing that kind of two-part motion for a minute. Once you can do that, then it's time to add in the high E string. So essentially, you need to pick the high E string immediately after you finish doing the swipe down with your thumb. The timing needs to happen so that the swipe down flows right into the picked note. So you should try to avoid this kind of a thing. There should be little to no gap between the rake sound and the note coming out. You can practice the timing of that by keeping all of the strings dampened with your left hand down here on the fretboard and essentially doing this. What I'm doing there is just slowing the rake technique way down. I'm doing all of the exact same motions that I would do it at full speed, but I'm just kind of taking it one string at a time. And I'm making sure that I'm picking that high E string there in time with the swipe down. So I don't want this or this. I want to make sure every pluck is evenly spaced out, including that last one on the high E string. Once you're able to do it slow like that, then you can gradually speed it up. And eventually you should be able to do it fast enough where on the swipe down, you're not hearing the individual strings being plucked and instead just hearing one noise. So this becomes this. The timing is still the same there, it's just happening much faster, so it just sounds like one explosive noise. Then finally, once you can do that with the right hand only, go ahead and add in the slide. Or if you're not playing slide, then just add in your fretted note. And that's it. That's how you do the rake technique. Alright, so once you know how to do the rake technique, when and where should you use it? Well, first of all, the rake technique tends to work the best on the upper 3 strings. And that is simply due to the fact that the lower the string is that you're playing, the fewer strings that you have available to actually rake through. You can rake while playing on the D string or the 4th string. When you do that, you're really only raking through the low E and A strings, which is just enough to give it kind of a rake sound. But any lower than that, like if you're playing on the A string, then it really just becomes more of a ghost note. At that point, you're really just kind of bouncing off of that low E string only, not doing an actual rake. And of course, if you're playing on the low E string, then you just don't have any lower strings to rake through. And so that's why you're primarily going to hear people do the rake technique on the upper 3 strings. So now, in a more artistic sense, when should you use the rake technique? Well, ultimately, it's up to you. You can use it as much or as little as you would like. But personally, I tend to use it mostly on bigger, louder moments of solos. And that's typically where you're going to hear Derek Trucks use it as well. Which I think just comes down to the fact that the rake has a pretty aggressive sound. I just feel like it would sound out of place to do it in like a sweet, quiet moment of a song, for example. At least doing it that frequently in a moment like that is just going to sound wrong if you ask me. Maybe if you do like 1 or 2 really strategically placed rakes in there, it could sound good, maybe like this. Something like that I think is okay, just placing a few of them here and there for a little bit of extra kind of emphasis and soul or whatever. But you got to be really careful to not overdo it in softer moments like that. So yeah, outside of that, I would mostly save the rake for just big, loud, aggressive moments in your solos where you're just really digging in. But But even then, I would recommend trying your best to not overdo it. Like that example just then, I feel like I did it too much. You want to try to save it for certain notes where you just want that extra punch and attitude. Because if you rake every note, or at least most of the notes in a phrase, first of all, it's just going to probably sound a little bit too scratchy and dissonant, and there's not going to be any specific emphasis anywhere in the lick when it comes to your articulation and attack. All of the notes are just going to come out the same. When it comes to which notes in a phrase you should rake and which ones you shouldn't, honestly, that's not really something that can be taught. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to watch some videos of Derek Trucks and really pay attention to when exactly he does the rake, but overall, it's just something you're going to have to get a feel for on your own over time. And so, I think that's going to do it for today's lesson on raking. Let me know in the comments down below if this video was helpful for you, or if you have your own raking tips to share, and let me know if there are any other specific techniques that you want me to do a lesson on. Don't forget that my guitar courses are currently on sale at 40% off for a limited time. Link is in the description down below if you want to check out my courses and take advantage of the sale. If you liked this video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you click the thumbs up button and then subscribe to my channel and click the bell notification icon to get notified whenever I post new videos. It really truly does help out my channel a lot because it tells the YouTube algorithm to show my videos to more people, which allows me to get more support from more people, which then allows me to continue being able to make videos like this one. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.